This is a picture of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman taken in 2002. It was taken on the day the 10-year-olds disappeared, and sadly, it will be the last picture ever taken of them alive. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl G, and we are back with another video. Today, we're going to be covering a case that talks about young children who get hurt, so trigger warning. If you're new to the channel, we do true crime, and sometimes we do some fun videos just to take our mind off the terrible reality that this world is not a safe place. So if you're interested in stuff like that, definitely consider subscribing. So is a small town with about 11,000 people, and in small towns, it's normal to see people that we just see them every day. Everyone knows each other, and most often these neighborhoods are very tight-knit communities, and it's very hard for you to see like dangerous crimes happening in them. So which is why when this happened, everyone was like so shocked and surprised to see that people could actually disappear in their small community. So on August 4th, 2002, Jessica and Holly were at a family barbecue, and as kids do, they're 10 years old. They are bored. They get bored easily, so they decided to wander about at about 6:15 p.m. 15 minutes later, they had wandered far and about 8:30, their parents were like, okay, where are the girls? Let's go check on them. And they started looking around, but the girls were nowhere to be found. At about 9:45 p.m., the girls were officially reported missing, and everyone was just like concerned and saying, this is not something that happens in this community. Most of the residents were interviewed by news and media people in the following days, and one of the people interviewed was Ian Huntley. 29-year-old Huntley was a caretaker at the secondary school that the village had, and he was living at a cottage on the school grounds, and he lived there with his girlfriend Maxine, who was a teacher assistant at that school. So Maxine must have known the girls personally because Holly and Jessica attended that same school. It was a bit surprising that Huntley got this job because there were allegations, and they only remained allegations against him that he had had sexual relations with underage girls. And even though this was reported to the police, the girls in question denied that ever happening between them. So he was never charged with any crime, but having that stigma around him, he still got a job at this school where there were underage girls. That's not all of his history. In April of 1989, Huntley had been arrested on suspicion of SA an 18-year-old woman. And even though he did not refuse that they had relations, he just said it was consensual, so he was never charged. And that's not all. The list goes on. Just 1 month after that, he was actually arrested, charged, and remanded in custody for about 1 week for doing the same SA to another 18-year-old girl. On August 4th, it said that Maxine had traveled and she was out of town. So it's believed that when Huntley saw the girls pass by, he invited them to come over. And as 10-year-old kids, their brain is working like, okay, our teacher is there. So he must have told them that their teacher, Maxine, was inside and they could come. And so they did. And that's probably where he ended them. In the interview, Maxine can be seen holding a card that Holly had made for her on the last day of school. So in my mind, I'm thinking like she already knew what had happened to the girls and she was somehow in mourning, and she's like, oh, she was such a loving, sweet little girl. That's why she was thinking of them in the past. So on August 17th at about 12 p.m., again, a gamekeeper who lived about 16 kilometers east of Sohan discovered the bodies of two little humans that was around a ditch. And he was with two friends at this time because a couple of days earlier, he had noticed an unpleasant smell coming from that around the ditch. And so on the 17th, when he was moving around with two other friends, he was like, let them check it out. And they found out that it was them. Even though the bodies had being in an advanced stage of decomposition, showing that they had been there for a while. They had also been burnt, which shows that it was an effort by whoever ended the girls to try and get rid of forensic evidence. There were no footprints around where the girls were found, but the detectives easily deduced that the girls were not ended in that spot. Their bodies had just been dumped around there, and also they found hairs that belonged to Jessica around the trees, which probably shows that when you're carrying someone and the person's hair gets stuck on the tree. So based on the description of how the bodies looked like, it was easy for them to just conclude that it was the girls, and a few days later they were formally identified. So as Maxine and Huntley were giving a lot of interviews, some Greensburg residents recognized Huntley and was like, wait, this guy is so many people, all of the crimes that he had been accused of before, they started calling police and giving tips like, hey, this is this guy, he has been accused of X in people before, so maybe you should look at him. And also residents from there said that Maxine had been in that town partying and enjoying the night. That same night the girls disappeared, as opposed to what she had told the police, because she was Huntley's alibi and she said she had been home with him that night. At this time, police decided to bring Maxine and Huntley in for questioning, and they were interviewed for about 7 hours. And after the interview, they kept them they were interviewed separately, kept them at separate places, and just kept them there while police were carrying out the search of his house. And I kid you not, the amount of evidence that they got from there. First, they had the Manchester United shirts that the two little girls had been wearing that had been charred and cut out. They found it in his house. They found it in a bin that is close to his house. They also found his fingerprints on that bin, like, you have been here. And they found particles from the girls' shirt that matched particles from Hadley's clothes as well. Also, even though Hadley had washed his car, the pavement of the road that to where the girls were found was found on his car. Even though he had washed the car properly, some were still found on the wheel. So obviously, with all of the evidence that they had, this was on the 16th, the police arrested him and Maxine for abduction. But by the 17th, when the girls were found, it became a murder charge. But when they were arrested, Hadley tried to fake insanity and was just acting confused, emotionally distraught, and was going off and on. So the police would recommend him to see a psychologist, whereas Maxine decided to come clean, and she started to confess that she had not been there that night. While she was in Grimsby, Hadley had called her and he told her that he had seen the girls that day and they had passed by the house. And actually they came into the house because Holly had a nosebleed and Jessica was helping her, sat on the bed while she was helping her control the nosebleed. And in her mind, it will be like, okay, if there is blood content, this girl's blood in the house, it's going to be like, it's not good. It's not a good look. So Hadley went on to tell Maxine that after all of those allegations that had been leveled against him in the past, it would not be a good look for people to know that the girls had been in his house that day. So he was so scared of being falsely accused again. That was the excuse that he gave her. So he tells Maxine all of this and says when he was first accused, he had like a mental breakdown and he's so scared of having the same thing happen to him. So Maxine is like, okay, baby, I'm going to lie for you. But after the police told her all of the evidence that they had found against him, she was like, no, it can't be him. He couldn't have done it. And for a long time, she still believed in his innocence and wrote letters to him, professing her love for him. Obviously, he was charged with 2 counts of murder, and she was charged with obstruction of justice. And helping an offender. She pled not guilty, and after his mental health was certified that he was okay to stand trial, he tried to claim that the deaths were accidental. So he explained to the court that Holly came in with a nosebleed and he tried to help her with the nosebleed. And then she fell into his bath and drowned. And when Jessica saw it, she began to scream and wanted to take the phone and call the police. But he took the phone away from her and somehow accidentally smothered her. And that's how the girls died. Obviously, the jury did not buy any of his BS, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. He would be in jail for at least 40 years before he's eligible for parole in 2042. And with all of the charges that he had evaded before actually ending people's lives, I feel like this was not supposed to happen, because if all of his previous charges were properly investigated and he was trialed, he might have been put behind bars before these young little girls got the chance to lose their lives. Zane, on the other hand, was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, and she served that's for preventing the course of justice, and she served about half of her sentence before she was released. And when she was released, she was given a whole new identity to go and start her life over. I feel bad. Like I've already said it before, like this is something that was supposed to happen. This is one of those cases that was not supposed to happen, because it had been taken care of properly the first times that he had committed actual crimes, and he was investigated properly. I'm not sure if there was no rape kit at that time to actually prove that he had forced these girls. All of this would not have happened, and these two kids would have gotten a chance to actually live their lives. But that was it for today's case. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.